Little Nightmares 3 is a game I've been excited for since it was announced. Finally, a return to the gloomy pit where childlike nostalgia meets the macabre. As the third installment in a much beloved horror series, Little Nightmares 3 had some big shoes to fill. Did it succeed? Well... Welcome to the Spiral, a collection of isolated locations ranging from the dusty remains of the necropolis to the lively, though lethal, carnival. It is here that Lo and Alone must escape, popping through mirrors trying to find their way home. And in classic Little Nightmares fashion, between them and safety is a horde of kooky, creepy, and downright cadaverous enemies. While I won't be going into full story spoilers here, so much of Little Nightmares' charm is not knowing what's around the corner, so if you don't want any of these entities spoiled, maybe just listen to this like a podcast. I'm also going to be running with the assumption that you have played Little Nightmares 1 and 2, because in many ways, Little Nightmares 3 is reminiscent of its predecessors, at least story beats wise. Two tiny kids must struggle and scramble to survive in a world not built for them, while solving puzzles and being chased by monsters straight out of the reimagining of Grisly Tales for Gruesome Kids. Shout out to early 2000s kids television. Where Little Nightmares 3 sets itself apart though, is the addition of online co-op, with you and a friend taking on the role of either Lo or Alone. It's not an addition I was particularly keen for in all honesty. I think games like Little Nightmares are far more enjoyable when you can completely submerge yourself in the world, in the feeling of being out of your depth and isolated. Something that's a bit harder to do when you've got a friend you can dick around with between chases. Thankfully, the powers that be seem to realise that was probably how a lot of fans would be feeling, so there is also the option of a single player mode, with the AI controlling whichever character you don't pick. Look, call it control issues, call it Johnny No Mates, in my opinion this is the better way to play Little Nightmares 3. Lo and Alone are a dynamic duo, both in terms of their abilities and how those abilities work together. In the few instances of combat, Lo's bow and arrow can stun enemies and catch their attention, leaving an opening for Alone to deliver the finishing blow with her wrench. While exploring, Alone can use that same wrench to bash weak walls, move platforms, and hit stubborn buttons, while Lo can shoot down suspended objects or items out of reach. It's a welcome change from the frustrations Little Nightmares 2 brought, with 6's AI routinely getting in the way or feeling like a tag-along. Here, you feel like you've got someone in your corner watching out for you. It actually caught me off guard how dynamic some of the movements are in your AI companion. Looking around, taking in the world, looking bored when I went off to chase the hidden dolls and collectibles scattered throughout the levels. The other bonus to playing single player is that at least one of you is aware of what's coming next, and you can use the AI as a sort of gauge for what to do, whether that be interacting with objects of interest, hiding, or absolutely booking it. Little Nightmares 3 is surprisingly unforgiving, more so than any other game in the series. Some chase sequences will see things just hurled at you and you're expected to know to dodge them. On top of that, enemies are capable of one-shotting you with almost no way to correct mistakes once you've got their attention. On its own, not a big deal. Little Nightmares has always had an element of trial and error to it. Death is your teacher. But if I'm having these issues with an AI that knows what's coming, imagine how frustrating it is trying to navigate with another person who isn't even in the room. That's probably the most confounding part of this new addition to Little Nightmares 3. At the time of review, there is no local co-op, just online. Game director Wayne Garland said in an interview with Eurogamer that this was because when you come back to the atmosphere and the immersion that we're trying to elicit through Little Nightmares, I think it was important for us that we stuck to our online co-op only, rather than traditional, more party aspects. But I have to question that logic, now having played both sides, solo and co-op. The atmosphere is already being impacted by adding another person into the mix, regardless of whether they're in the room with you or not. I will give credit to the idea of the friend pass, which lets a second player join in without having to also purchase the game. But you can't swap in and out of solo and co-op on a single run, so if your pal bows out mid-campaign, you have to start a whole new save file. It all just feels needlessly restrictive. Which is a real shame because Little Nightmares 3 is bringing some cool ideas to the table. One of my favourite sections is in the asylum, where you have to move through this dilapidated building whilst carrying a doll that acts as a link to another time when things weren't quite so haunting. And as you move, it reveals new paths or hidden details to help you navigate the area. For a sadly brief period, Low and Alone make use of umbrellas to get around, cruising on the wind across large distances, which I loved. I also really enjoyed the carnival section. It's aesthetically the closest thing to the whimsical horror of 1 and 2, and for keen-eyed fans, there are also a couple of interesting references to previous Little Nightmares properties, like the audio series The Sounds of Nightmares and the novel The Lonely Ones. But story-wise, Little Nightmares 3 feels disappointingly anticlimactic. While there are some very sweet moments between the two, neither Low or Alone are really given enough time to shine as they're ushered from puzzle to puzzle. And then, just when I thought we were starting to make some progress, the credits rolled. There are 2 future levels that are supposed to come out in a paid expansion, which I have feelings about, that might offer some interesting content, but as it stands, I'm conflicted. On the one hand, I did have a good time. If this was any other game that wasn't named Little Nightmares, I'd say that was a light, fun meal. Not particularly filling, but I see what they're going for, and move on. But this series has set such a high bar that I was expecting more. I wanted more. More story, more scares, more tension, more character development, more of what made 1 and 2 such compelling games. Little Nightmares 3 isn't a bad game, but it falls short of the standards set by its predecessors and fails to take advantage of the glimmers of excellence that it does have. I don't begrudge Supermassive for trying something new, but I wish that it didn't come at the cost of what made Little Nightmares so appealing in the first place. Pass.